it's a point really building on the recent questions, which is the balance between the quantity of data and the quality of the data. And I think, so David, you commented that there's a great deal of data out there, a lot of material at the moment. But I was surprised, for example, that the Home Office wasn't keeping data on how much compensation it paid on asylum issues, for example. And I just would welcome, as part of this transparency, who is driving the assessing of where there isn't data and the raising of data? Is that coming from a challenge centrally, or is it very much for the departments to identify that sort of thing?
Well, it will partly come from the political priorities we are set both by the Home Secretary and by the centre of government. But I think in this process, and in a sense this conversation is proving this, it will also come from the public, if you like, and from the representatives of the public, because you will be saying to us, there's all this transparency, but actually we can't find out what we really need. And if we're serious about transparency, and the government's very, very serious about it, then we have to try and respond to that. If we're not providing data in a way that people can understand, it's not going to work, is it? So I think that is, that is why this is such a big change, really. It's trying to get data in a form which is usable, answering the questions that the public and you would want to have answered.
And as part of that, are you going to be putting perhaps names attached to certain priorities so that there's transparency as to who within the department is actually owning some of these issues?
Well, it depends which priorities you mean. I mean, the ministerial names have to go first against the priorities, don't they? Because ultimately that's where the first line of accountability lies for the political priorities that have been set.
But that's more at the policy level. I'm talking about the execution level as well.
Yes, but a lot of these things are about policy, to be clear. But we haven't gone as far as doing that. What we've, of course, just done is put a great deal of information about the organisation of our departments into the public domain with names attached to it. We haven't gone as far as that. I suppose we could, but it's. I perhaps thought not to commit myself to that.
The trouble is people move so fast, both ministerially and officially.
I mean, it is helpful, the information. I mean, I was struck, for example, in your department, I think there's 150 staff on press and communications and 64 in your private office. And in terms of just understanding how the challenge you have on administration and the cuts there, again, is that something that it'd be for you to determine as a... Obviously, you'll be departing, but the permanent secretary will be determining where those administrative savings come, or is that going to be coming from the central challenge? For example, looking across government at the press operation and whether press and communications can be done more efficiently across a number of departments.
Well, it will be a bit of both. I mean, the first responsibility is for me to organise the department to meet the priorities within the budget. And since the money isn't there, I have to hit the bottom line that I'm given in terms of the money. There is a requirement to cut administration costs by a third, and the communications functions are encompassed within that. Now, some of those savings can be achieved in our corporate and support services by sharing those services with other departments across government. So the pension services in government are provided from one place for all civil service pensioners now, and I think that model will become more and more common. So we'll have fewer of our own dedicated HR and finance services, and we'll have more of them shared. And we're already down that road, but this, to meet the requirements here in terms of cutting expenditure, we'll have to go a lot further. I would never cut the private offices, but by the way, it's not my private office that has 64, it's the Home Office's private office, and I would never cut the private office without consultation with the ministers, of course.
Matthew.
Thank you very much.